Thanks, Minister. Okay, listen, I don't think you were here for the last... Yeah. You were? I was watching. Ah, you were watching. Okay. Well, look, to be honest, I've made a lot of the points I want to make, but I'll just briefly summarise, Minister, and my significant interest in this would be particularly informed by the experience of the Debenhams workers. And I think you know that they went through an incredible struggle, 406 days of strike action to try and vindicate their rights to a collective redundancy agreement that had been agreed with Debenhams, where they would get their 2 weeks statutory plus 2 weeks for each year of service when that company went into liquidation or when they were made redundant. And of course they were absolutely shafted by Debenhams in the most ruthless manner, and they didn't get anything. And the public had to end up paying out because the company reneged on their commitment. And it is certainly my view and the view of the workers as they set out, throughout their protests, and indeed we had multiple debates in this House about it. It was their view, and in fact has now been immortalised in the film that they have made, 406 Days. You should go and see it if you haven't seen it, Minister. It's won multiple awards. It's getting its UK premiere this Friday, and it's been watched in mainstream cinemas, which was, to be honest, a surprise even to the workers and to the people who produced it, that it was so popular. Huge numbers of people went to see it in cinemas all over the country, and it's now gone international and won international awards and so on, because so many people identified with the plight of workers who, in their case, but this story has been repeated very often, gave years and years of very dedicated, loyal service to a company, and that company absolutely betrayed that loyalty, that trust, that hard work that those people had gone into building up the brand of Debenhams Debenhams in their case, and actually prior to that Rocha Stores, because Debenhams have been purchased from Rocha Stores, or Rocha Stores sold over to Debenhams, and they were absolutely gutted. I mean, absolutely gutted. Lied to, first of all, in the sense that they were told during COVID that it was a COVID-related layoff, and then discovered via an email that their jobs were gone, they were never coming back. And but that's an experience that has been replicated in this country on multiple occasions, but across the world it's something that people are familiar with, and that's why I think so many people have gone to see that film. And their determination is that that should never happen to a group of workers again. So they would be looking to this legislation to ensure that that didn't happen again. And it is worth saying that a report, the Duffy-Cahill report, had been produced, I can't remember the date, a number of years earlier, which had sought to address this kind of situation to ensure that where there were collective redundancy agreements, that those agreements would receive preferential creditor status, so that they would be at the top of the list when it came to the dispersal of the assets, that in order to ensure that they got those agreements that had been committed to them, those redundancy payments that had been committed to them. So this bill, as I understand it, does not really do that. It doesn't change the position of the workers. It does give a 30-day window. It does require that it gives them greater access to information relating to the financial position of the company and to the process of liquidation, but and does give them the right to go to the WRC if that 30-day window is breached, but with a fine on the company that breaches that 30-day window of only €5,000. Now, to be honest, I don't see how that's going to really inhibit a company, and certainly if you look at Debenhams, the amount of money that was at stake, they wouldn't be worried about 5,000 quid, a fine of 5,000 quid for breaching the terms of what, what they're supposed to do here. If that's the penalty that they're going to suffer, I don't see how that's really going to be a disincentive in any serious way. Because just to remind you, Minister, what we think and the workers think happened, it was a tactical liquidation where Debenhams UK, unbeknownst to the workers, had taken out a 200 million loan facility from a consortium called Glass Trust that involved US hedge funds and the Bank of Ireland and Barclays Bank. They had imposed the debt, that 200 million debt, on the Irish company. I think it was 2 years before. You can check the details in this yourself. But the workers didn't know that. So when they were initially told of the financial position of the company, they were told that it was 19 million euros in debt. So they had some comfort because the Debenhams Online was still functioning and was generating huge amounts of revenue, and they knew that there were assets in the company stores all over the country that were very, very likely far exceed the 19 million in debt, right? So they had good reason to believe that there were assets available in terms of the continuing revenue to the online business and the assets, physical assets in the possession of the company, to think that they could actually get their 2+2 from the assets of the company, but then discovered that the financial position they were told by the liquidators was 19 million, actually was the company was 225 million in debt. And the way in which that was triggered couldn't have been done until precisely the moment it was done, because this debt facility was established, I think it was 2 years, 1 or 2 years, but it couldn't crystallise on the company until precisely the moment it did, right? In other words, it was pre-planned. And what that meant is then Glass Trust, who had lent that money to Debenhams UK, became the owners of the company and got all the assets. They got all the assets, so the workers were left for absolutely nothing. The question is, does this legislation deal with that? Now, talking to your officials, they were saying that there are additional remedies, and that the pool of assets, the scope of it maybe is quite wide, and that the pool of assets should be broadened. But what I would like reassurance of, and I don't really think it is the case, is that that sort of tactical liquidation, that sort of premeditated, as it would seem to the workers, that happened in this case, that it would guarantee that they would get the first call on those assets, rather than essentially what were vulture funds. Vulture funds who, in a deal, it looks like, with Debenhams UK, lend them the money, knowing quite well, after we sell off the Danish company, which was released of that burden of debt, and it was all loaded on the Irish company, right? A company that was actually in reasonably decent financial position, particularly if you took on the online business. But instead, all the debt was loaded on it. So the question is, can we prevent that from happening again, where workers don't get shafted, and they are at the top of the list, ahead of vulture funds who are engaged in essentially a financial manipulation of the company in order to be able to asset strip it, because that's what actually happened. And it seems to me that this doesn't guarantee that is the case. And even if, as I understand it, and I'm not the expert, your officials are probably far more expert in this, is that you could go to court under the Companies Act. But again, like for workers who have nothing, who've lost everything, and wouldn't have much resources, how the hell are they going to fight their way through the courts trying to work out whether there's any legal remedy for them? And that would be a hugely costly process, right? So that's not much comfort, really, because these companies with their lawyers, these vulture funds with all the assets and resources they have, the chips are very heavily stacked against the workers, I would have thought, in those circumstances. Now, maybe you've got answers to all these questions, but certainly it seems to me that we need to absolutely guarantee that that sort of manipulation and asset stripping to prevent workers getting their fair redundancy, as happened in Debenhams and other situations, can simply never happen again. And that the workers who contributed to all the profits those companies made over decades and decades and decades, and to the value of the brand and so on, that they are the ones who get the first call on the assets in the company before anybody else does, so that they are not shafted. Sorry to use slightly colourful language, but that's a very difficult other way to describe it. Absolutely shafted in the way the Debenhams workers did. And it would be a fitting tribute to the heroism, frankly, of the Debenhams workers who are treated so badly, that we absolutely guarantee that such a thing could never happen again.